The Oregon Shakespeare Festival is doing a massive 3-year project where they are translating Shakespeare's plays into English. This is not the first time a thing like this has happened. SparkNotes has produced No Fear Shakespeare for a long time, where they have Shakespeare's original text side by side with a modern English translation, and you can read like line by line. This is roughly equivalent to this, and so you can sort of follow along if you're having trouble with the wording or with the vocabulary. Something that's different about this project is that it's not sponsored by a company like SparkNotes, which sort of benefits from people not understanding literature and helps people get to understand them better if they don't already. It seems pretty different to think of a wildly successful Shakespeare company thinking that Shakespeare needs translation to be accessible to an audience. I would argue that, for the most part, Shakespeare's vocabulary isn't archaic, it's just big. The problem isn't that the words are old, but that they're unusual. Shakespeare knew a lot of words, and he was very creative and inventive in the way he used those words, something we're still talking about today. And we still celebrate inventiveness in language, in English today. I remember about 10 years ago when the movie The Incredibles came out, Syndrome used the line, "I'm still geeking out about it." And at the time, I thought it was like really cool to use the word geek as a verb. And it added a lot to the movie to have a character seem so in touch with the trend and all this technology and everything. 400 years ago, Shakespeare was doing just the same thing, and doing it so well that we're still talking about how much he's added to the language. So going back to the translation bit, on the one hand, we have people like SparkNotes or Oregon Shakespeare Festival who are worrying that Shakespeare might be too inaccessible in its original form. And then there's this like other trend on the other side of the spectrum where you have like Shakespeare's Star Wars, or Pop Sonnets is a popular blog where like and writes the lyrics of the song in a sonnet form, and all with the these and the thous and the twas, which like is imitating the part of Shakespeare that's the most difficult to get a hold of, like the outdated, archaic part of Shakespeare, but is also sort of weirdly not catching what makes Shakespeare important. It's not that those are bad, any more than translating Shakespeare is like inherently a bad thing to do. It's just, I feel like they both miss a lot. And I don't mean to say that Shakespeare's extensive vocabulary is the only thing that makes him great, but I do think it's part of it. When I would hate to see that our language just drop the words that people don't use as much, that the words would just disappear because people don't know them and can't use them, or if they use them, people don't understand them. It makes me really happy when I see really young people, especially young children, knowing big words that are more complicated than you would expect them to know. Like, I knew a little 2-year-old who loved the word sachet. He had read it in a book and would sashay across the room and tell you he was sashaying. And my nephew is recently making us all laugh by wanting to make sure everyone knows that omnivores are the ones that eat the plants and the meat. And it's charming to have like 2-year-old children know the meaning of the word sachet or omnivore. And I think that it's not something that we should shy away from as we get older. I realize it's difficult to grapple with words you don't understand, but I don't think that difficult things are bad. Not necessarily. Having to learn the words of someone who is truly excellent at expressing thoughts and ideas in English makes the speakers of English better speakers, and the writers of English better writers. One of my professors in grad school loved that Macbeth talks about his hand being so dirty with blood that the whole sea will get turned red. He says, "No, rather this my hand will the multitudinous seas incarnadine, making the green one red." So this, like, multitudinous seas incarnadine is very Latin. All those multisyllabic words, and then making the green one red is so Germanic. It sounds like it could be something from Beowulf, like the little, like, blunt force of those short, little, tough words. That it, like, he's using the background of the language in order to benefit the play. Even though, like, you would never even think of it. I had never thought about it before my professor mentioned that. But it aids the delivery. It aids who Macbeth is, like, getting philosophical about something and then getting brutal, like getting both sides of it together. It seems cool to me. I like it. So English is a big, messy language, but that's one of the things that makes English a great language. And it's difficult to deal with words you don't understand. I think that it's something that everyone can understand if they give it a shot. What do you think? Do you think that Shakespeare is too hard to read by itself? Do you think that things should be translated? Do you have favorite translations? Are there ways that you particularly like reading Shakespeare for the first time, or is it intimidating? Do you prefer to watch the plays first? I'm interested to know your thoughts. Bye!